Okay, welcome to an evening of metaphysical speculation. My name's Dennis. This is probably just going to be a preview because I don't know whether Lenny's around at the moment. I've sent him an invite, but he may not get here, so I'll just talk for 5 minutes. And if he doesn't get here, we'll set it up again and do it a bit later. So these conversations are roughly once a week, sometimes once a fortnight, depending on what's going on. Last week I couldn't really do it because my concentration level wasn't great. Think I was still recovering from being in hospital. It takes me about a week to recover when I'm in hospital for a week. So it's one of those things where if I'm in for an operation, I'm probably going to skip that week with Lenny. And that was a week where I was in for an operation. So fortunately, it seems to have gone okay. On the way to be released, I was sat in the waiting room area with a woman who was in serious pain from a similar operation. I put stents between my kidneys and my bladder. So I've got plastic tubes between my kidneys and my bladder, basically keeping the route open. And she'd had the same operation, but she was in serious pain. Her stents were going into spasm. Excuse me. Got a bit of a hay fever thing going on at the moment. It's sneezing all day. Excuse me. All right. So I ended up doing a Reiki session for this woman. Um, just sat in the dispatch lounge waiting for an ambulance. She was trying to get her act together to get to a car. So I sat for about 20 minutes holding her hand, talking her through breathing exercises, distracting her a little bit, using her memories to distract her, and got her to the point where she had a grin on her face and there was no more spasms. So I think that's a success, really, given that all the hospital were doing was pumping her full of painkillers, which is not the ideal way to do these things at all in my world. So I know from that experience and from the week after that I've had, it's a couple of weeks really since the operation now, I was having similar spasms, not quite as painful, or at least my reaction wasn't as much. Um, Still painful, walking from my bed to the kitchen. By the time I get to the kitchen, I would be in pain and in spasm and possibly need to go to the toilet just to make sure that I didn't need to move my bowels or whatever because the spasm isn't just your bladder, it's bowels as well. It's all of that area. So you can't tell whether you need to go or not. That's the thing. So you just have to make sure. Anyway, it's one of those things where I started to think about I was supposed to be taking tinzaparin as well, which is an injection. So I was supposed to be injecting myself in my stomach once a day with tinzaparin because I'm waiting for the warfarin to kick in. And I've been reluctant to do it, so I've missed a couple of days. I've been reluctant and noticeably resisting. So I decided to do an immunic session to take out my resistance to injecting myself with tinzaparin. I did that on Sunday, just gone, and I had been in spasm. Keep in mind, I had been in spasm on a very regular basis up until that point, and I did the session to remove resistance on the Sunday evening, and on the Monday I'd stopped having my spasms, so I was no longer. It's still uncomfortable sometimes, but there's no pain. There's no rush to get to the toilet. I do sometimes have to rush to get to the toilet, but not as often, nowhere near as often. So the spasms have gone. So the resistance was what was keeping the spasms in place, and I've now removed that resistance. Even though I was removing it for a different reason, it's the same resistance, and it may not even actually be resistance. It might be something else. I'm just calling it resistance because that makes sense to me. That makes logical sense. Anyway, the point of all that is that I've now got a very specific pain relief method for a very specific type of pain that I know works, which is if anybody out there has got kidney stents or stents in your bladder and they're causing you that kind of spasmodic, excruciating pain, then I might be able to help you out. And what I'd like to do is test this a couple of times before I start charging people. So if you want to have a Reiki distance healing session for free, as long as you give me feedback, honest feedback, don't just make stuff up, tell me the truth. As long as you do that, then I'll do the session for free. And then after I've done two or three sessions for free and I know it works and I'm getting reasonable feedback back, then I'll start charging people. So if you want to be the first to test this out, feel free to connect with me in the comments, and I'll set something up for you. We might just do it as a live stream. That would be the easiest way to do it, I think, because then I can talk you through it, and you can give me live feedback as we're going along. Yeah, it doesn't look like Lenny's. Lenny's around. Let's have a look.
Good morning, Dennis.
All right, hi Lenny.
Actually,
I've
it's
just
not
been
morning
gibbering
where
on to
you are.
myself,
Good
waiting for you to
afternoon.
arrive.
Pardon?
Yeah, well, it's 20 past 4 where I am at the moment. Yeah, I've just been gibbering on. But how are you doing this week? You're okay?
Oh, yes. I find that I am very thankful that I don't have excruciating pain that requires me to need reishi or visit the medical profession or any of those things. I am in reasonable shape. I could use maybe 15 pounds less than I'm packing, but it has to be from specific areas. I can't just drop general weight.
Yeah,
All good.
I've been putting it on, but it looks to everybody else like I'm losing weight for some reason. But I've actually put a bit on. But my trousers have fallen off around me, so it kind of looks like I've lost a bit of weight around my waist. I put it on my belly, which is inevitable.
It makes me wonder if the shape of humans is changing as part of what's happening, because my pants also are falling off of me, and I don't I don't use weight scales to measure my weight anymore. I find that I can use my own balance to give myself an approximation, but once I use the weight scale and it fixes a weight, then I seem to be stuck at that weight for a while, plus or minus 5 pounds, which is just water weight.
Yeah. I put on 2 kilos of water weight every couple of days, and then they take it off me in the dialysis session. So you go up and down all the time with water.
Water's an interesting thing. I found that if I'm horizontal instead of vertical, when I get back to vertical, I always have to discharge water.
Right? Yeah, that makes sense. It's gravity kicking in and pulling it out of you.
Yeah, I think there's other things going on in the spatial orientation of humans also, that if you're standing erect, it puts you into one morphology, and if you're sitting or lying down, it puts you into different morphologies. And I don't know. I think the water is conscious, might be responsible for human conscious, but for sure the water knows what it's doing with inside the human system.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's certainly an element of consciousness in there. I can't quite explain how, but that feels like the right way that things work to me. I've always been like, I was trained years ago in Bach flower essences. I did a flower and crystal essences practitioner course, that never actually finished, but I learned enough to know that they work because I was using them every single week, and we were doing like a monthly. It was a monthly course over 2 years. So you're supposed to just keep a diary of what's going on and what flower essences you're using and everything, and then which I was doing. So I was being very attentive, and it makes a huge difference. Flower essences, they're an absolute godsend for emotional baggage or trauma or uh, kind of psychological issues that you can't quite put your finger on.
I have been using some essential oils like rosemary and echinacea and peppermint. I like peppermint oil a lot. And these essential oils can be used topically or internally, just a dab. But it really makes me, it gives me the essence of the aroma and also a physical changing, but it's really in small amount. I've got these small, tiny jars of the essences, and they've lasted me for quite a long while. I think I'm on the second jar of peppermint oil, but everything else is original jar. And it's not hard to extract oil from plants if you have apparatus to do it with. It's an extraction followed by an evaporation. And if you have distillation ability, it's real easy to distill because you just collect at the right temperature that the oil comes off at, and you can remove it from water or any other solvents that happen to be in it. So I'm a firm believer in essential oils, but only to be used when necessary. I don't have a background of an essence here or aromatherapy. Somehow aromatherapy seems to me to overdo it. When you're breathing it all the time, it kills the ability to target a, a pain or an injury.
Yeah, it's maybe the oils are a little bit too concentrated sometimes.
Possible, possible. It also depends on their vapor pressure. Some oils very easily get out, others you need to almost put under your nose in order to get the essence. But there's a good one for breathing. It's called Breathe. That's a mixture of several oils that I use. But healing is one of those things that if your mind tells you to heal, you can take the method and they're interchangeable. But
Yeah,
I like your idea to pin down the what the oil is doing or the reishi that you talked about. That whoever takes you up on that will have a good adventure. But my I have found that reishi works by distance, and so it is a worthwhile thing, especially if you're in constant pain. Constant pain is never any fun.
yeah. I mean, I did an experiment with one of my uh, face-to-face clients one week where we couldn't get the face-to-face session going, and what he reported back to me was the distance session was about 10% of what he got face-to-face, but he was still happy with it. I mean, it's the only way we could do the session at the time, and he was still getting what he wanted from it, so he was quite happy. And we just went back to the normal routine after that. But to say that it's still noticeable and it works, even if it's only 10% of what you would get face to face. That's saying something really when you're talking about. Well, I know distance isn't really an object and time doesn't really exist in this kind of case, but you're still talking about thousands of miles or hundreds of miles sometimes, and
I guess it's
sometimes.
it's an enclosed frequency. And so you can think of it as frequency in a tube that stretches invisibly over that distance. But I don't know. I'm not sure if all this stuff we understand about wave theory, especially carrier waves, work as it's supposed to. It seems to me that waves would embed in each other fractally as opposed to having a rider on a wave that's at a different frequency.
I've done experiments as well that I don't necessarily talk about, but I've done kind of playful experiments where I've connected with people using Reiki and added a thought to that process. So it's like putting something in their heads that they wouldn't normally think about. And then if they report back the conversation later on and it's got that thought in it, I know there's been a connection. So I've been using it for telepathy as well in that kind of way. As part of the healing process, obviously, but you could use it. You could use it for mind control. If you put your head in that direction, it would be very effective as mind control.
I like to control my own mind, and so I'll send myself telepathy. And I don't know. The essence of what it is you do is something that you have to believe in your ability to do it. If you don't believe that you can do something, you will sabotage the attempt to do it unwittingly because your mind isn't there. But once you get a process down and it works, by all means, never allow anyone to tell you it doesn't work that way because you've proved to yourself that it works that way. And by allowing someone else to negate what you believe, you lose that belief. So I've had things that I've used in the past that don't work anymore, but that's because I'm beyond the belief that they would work. And it just seems like it's a long hill up to get healed. And I think that's because a lot of what we have in this world is made to cause discomfort.
Yeah, I think a certain amount of it is, but I also think that there's a reason there's a reason for the discomfort. The discomfort pushes you in a particular direction or pushes you to sort out the problem, and it's a motivational thing. So if you didn't have the discomfort, you wouldn't have motivation to solve the problem, would you?
Not at all.
So it kind of works together to point you in the direction that I'm not going to say you should be going in, but I don't know whether I'm going in the right direction of not or not most of the time. I just do I do what is the next thing that's in front of me to do usually, and that's enough. And then if it goes tits up, I stop doing it. And if it works, I keep doing it. It's no more complicated than that.
Yeah, everything is in flux. And just because something works today doesn't mean it works tomorrow. And we like to develop mechanisms for how things work. And that's extra baggage that we really don't need. If you know how something is supposed to work, you try and force it into that mode. And force isn't good with healing modalities. You really should just allow it to happen. And when it does happen, you're in much better shape. And if it doesn't, there's always another remedy to try.
What I've always done is I try to be playful with it. So there's a lot of rules. There's a lot of rules in how you do Reiki Seiki when I was taught when I was learning, and I stick to most of them. But every now and again, if there's a good reason for varying, you can vary it a little bit. So I was taught I was taught well, Reiki doesn't have psychic surgery with it. It's just hands-on, very simple, like hand positions and symbols. Whereas Reiki Seiki, I was taught psychic surgery. So I was taught about taking out blocks from the chakras and stuff like that, which isn't part of normal Reiki teaching. It's an add-on. It's an extra thing that's been added. So I use that now and again, but I found that I dropped it. I did for the first few years. I used it because I'd been taught how to do it that way, and then I kind of dropped it a little bit, and I started using different methodologies like emotional freedom technique I use and Sedona method I use, neither of which I've really been taught how to use. But I've just watched videos and seen how they work, and I'm copying what people have been doing on the videos basically. But it works, and I've done really good sessions with Sedona method just because the guy was ready to let go of his shit, and we ended up having a long beer session. We had 4 or 5 beers together, and over the course of that, he told me a whole load of stuff that he wanted to get rid of, and I'm just going, all right, I can help him do this. So why not? So I ended up we were sat in a gay bar in the corner, and I'm holding his arms and just talking him through Sedona method, telling him it's the right time to let it go and it's safe to let it go and all these things you've got to do. Very simple things. And he was ready, so he just did. And you could see in his body movements and his posture that he was focused on letting it go and ready to let go. And he was weaving all over the place and kind of you could see it was like an exorcism what was going on. There was something you could see there was something going on from his posture. And anyway, that was a really good session. He turned into a good friend of mine. And that was just from watching videos on YouTube, and because I like it, I was using it myself, and I wanted to see if it would work with other people, so I just tested it. But I was being playful. I wasn't being kind of it'll definitely work. I was just being like, it's an experiment. We're going to see what happens. Are you up for it? And he went, yeah, absolutely. He was ready for it. And those are the people, when you meet them, those are the people that you don't need to do very much. All you've got to do is guide them through, and they're doing it themselves, basically.
Yeah, I think modern medicine is caught up in protocols, and that they teach the MDs, the medical doctors, that if this is such, then this is such. And the whole process of going to a medical professional seems to be to get people onto artificially created drugs, whereas the natural herbal drugs work perfectly fine. Medicine extracts those so that the peripheral compounds that would be generated within the plant from a natural drug are not there in the pharmaceutical. You get just a big dose of heavily purified one compound. And the ancillary compounds are what keep the electron chain flowing and spread out and develop a consistency of reaction with the body. But when you're using protocols, if you make a change in the protocol and it works for the better, it's worth documenting so that you have it as as an example that you can do it that way. But I firmly believe that everybody can do anything they want if they put their mind to it, and that part of the human experience is that we've lost a lot of our abilities because the system has created alternatives and got us to think the alternatives are the only choice.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time, even when people are using herbs, it's not the herb that's doing the work really. It's the fact that you think you're going to be cured. It's the possibility of a cure that produces the effect of a cure. And once you open your mind to the possibility of a cure, you can use it. You can use almost anything as the route to that cure, or your mind will allow you to use almost anything as a route to the cure. So you can you can you can say, I'm going to be cured of something by this bag of crisps or by this chocolate bar. And if you believe that it'll work, it's probably going to work because you've opened your mind to the possibility of a cure.
Yeah, I'm going to see about developing an herbal apothecary and make some extracts and tinctures and other solutions to maybe even oils of different plants that grow naturally in this area that seem to work for me in healing. I've got some plants outside like feverfew and catnip and simple plants like basil. Basil is kind of amazing because it's strong flavor. We use it in a lot of different things, but it's also got a lot of healing properties. My preference is taking dried leaf and crushing it, putting it in a basket, and making a tea. And you can pretty much control how much you get by the amount of material you put in. Whereas I think when you're doing more chemistry and doing an extract, say, you you have to analyze it to know how much is in there to get an idea of how well it works, and that's too much work. Simply crush a few leaves, put it in a tea. In our area now, with it coming up at the beginning of summer, I've got a place where I can get spearmint and peppermint naturally. So it's definitely the right season to collect herbs to be dried for the winter.
Yeah, yeah. Put me down for some of that, Lenny. I'll distribute it over here if you want to do it in a reasonably large amounts of quantities or whatever. Well, I don't know whether I can distribute it, but I'll have a go. I know quite a few people who are interested in this sort of stuff now.
We can see, I don't have it together yet because I don't have the physical space to do it, but the intention is out there and I've been collecting the things I want to work with. A lot of it is that the potency goes down as it gets more stale, that you want to go out and pick your plants fresh and work with them right away, as opposed to allowing them to set. That's if you're going to do chemistry. If you're doing making a tea out of it, to me, it seems like drying the plant open is the important thing. And what I guess that does is it allows evaporation of certain components that you might not want in your tea, but you could always mask things with a standard commercial tea. Tea is good stuff. They've demonized coffee, but coffee is good stuff too. And a lot of people's headaches are just due to lack of coffee when they've been drinking a lot of it and then they suddenly stop drinking. The withdrawals from caffeine are pretty hard. And people blame the coffee, but it's really just a concentration focus.
Yeah, I'm not allowed coffee anymore, unfortunately, but there's just too much potassium in there. My potassium levels up too high. So I'm strictly on tea, but I've got ginger tea in there. So I like my ginger tea, and ginger's good for your kidneys as well. As it turns out, I was craving ginger when I was in hospital. When I first went into hospital this time last year, I started. The first thing I started to eat when I started eating was ginger biscuits, and it turns out ginger's good for your kidneys. So I was craving the right thing to fix my kidneys, even though I had no idea.
Ginger and garlic make a good pair together. If you have fresh ginger, fresh garlic, you can chop it up and put it in a little bit of olive oil and add that. That makes it makes a potion that just seems to draw a lot of things from the body. And I used it when I was trying to lose weight specifically to modify my how I did things. It seems that the belly fat that we carry is much more susceptible to a ginger garlic mix than it is to to other things. Oh, I also used cayenne pepper in that mixture. So cayenne pepper, fresh garlic, fresh ginger mixed together in olive oil. And that was, I'd make a shot of that and drink it. And it also curbed my appetite quite a bit. So I think that might be part of the essence of why it was a weight loss thing. Because after you've eaten garlic and ginger raw, your stomach wants to digest them. It doesn't want something on top of them.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you think about the narratives around garlic, that they're associated, obviously they're associated with warding off vampires. So you're talking about warding off something that's after your blood. So there's a metaphor there that tells you what the garlic's doing. It's cleaning your blood in some way. And
I'll
it's
buy
just
that.
it's in the old folk it's in the old folk tales. You've got to look at them in a particular way to see what they're telling you.
I have found that a real good something that I like is taking a couple cloves of garlic, peeling them, and then putting them in honey for about 6 weeks. And the honey gets diluted by pulling the water from the garlic, but the honey garlic, pretty awesome tasting. And also, it makes me feel better when I've used it.
Right? Okay, well that's good enough. That's good enough. If it's making you feel good or making you feel better than you did otherwise, it's doing something positive. Because
Yeah,
it's that
and
feeling that gets you to the next stage.
we are better detectors than all of the instrumentation that the medical profession uses. You know when something's not right with you. And if you take something and if it makes it worse, you know immediately. Whereas the medical profession, they dump in painkillers so that you can't recognize where the pain comes from. But I find that usually when I have problems, they're associated with something that I've done, except for hay fever, which comes around the same time every year. And that is an association I have. It's just the pollens in the plants. Some years it's worse than others. This year it really wasn't bad at all. I had about a week where I was having trouble with respiration. But if you know you're having trouble with respiration, then you focus on your breathing. And when you focus on your breathing, it's almost meditative.
Yeah, I mean I've been sneezing today and yesterday because I've had the windows open a little bit, and there's obviously still some pollen in the air. It's been warm. It's been very hot here. It's cooled down a little bit, but the pollen gets released obviously when the temperature goes over about 25 degrees or whatever. It goes bananas. Uh, and I've been walking around the block for breakfast every day, so I'm getting my legs working again properly. Obviously, I'm slow. I'm a bit slower than I want to be, but now I've got used to the route that I'm taking. I'm speeding up, and I'm not stopping to lean on buildings or anything. I'm just walking straight around the block now. Whereas when I first started doing it, I was stopping to lean on buildings and catch my breath. So even just in a week, you can see the difference in my legs. So hopefully, by the end of this year, I should be sorted. I should be walking without a stick, with a bit of luck. Fingers crossed.
Hmm. Yeah, I walk into town 5 to 10 times a week. Town is about a mile each way. And so that provides me with enough essential exercise that I don't have to work out at a gym or play sports. I always enjoyed playing sports, but I always wrecked my body at it. And so now I'm finding that I suffer a little bit from calf cramps because I had done some bicycling in my younger life and that involved climbing hills. And the muscles that I developed from climbing hills on a bicycle are now 50 years later telling me, hey, we were at this size. We don't want to go back to that size. We're going to throw you a cramp. But if you have leg cramps, calves, or heel, or anything like that, the way to immediately get rid of it is to put pressure on it. So all you have to do is stand up and your cramp goes away.
Yeah, I've done that before now. Makes sense. I tend to use Reiki for everything, or at the moment Immunix for everything, because it seems to work well. Immunix definitely works for more or less everything I've aimed it at. Reiki works for some things and better than it does others. It'll work for muscle pain. It'll work for spasms or cramps or migraines, things like that. It'll work for swollen ankles. I've done swollen ankle sessions with people at work before now, and they were absolutely astonished by what I was doing, because it literally, like, they came into work the next day and they didn't have a swollen ankle at all. Everything that was going on with their ankle had been sorted out, and all I'd done was 5 minutes of Reiki, and and I'd just done that was a good day actually. I did a session for somebody's knee, a lady at work who'd been limping for weeks, who couldn't get shot of this knee injury, and somebody else asked me to go over and have a look at it and see what I could do. So I stood. She was sat down, and I stood with my hands on her shoulders, and I had an audience. I had like 20 people watching what I was doing because I was at work on a tea break. So I talked her through a little bit of breathing, did what I do, connected up to universal energy or the divine or whatever you want to call it, and I just stood there with my hands on her shoulders and I listened to her body, and I checked in with her knees one at a time, and when I like put my attention on her knees, it clicked back into place. I audibly I heard it, and so did everybody else. Heard her knee click into place, and then I told her just to stand up and give it a try, and she started walking, and she was fine. And I think that lasted for weeks. It lasted for about at least a month before she started limping again. So as a result of that, I had people queuing up on my next tea break to get their ailments sorted out. So I literally had two people with swollen ankles who wanted their ankles sorting out, who were on my team, the kitchen team, whereas this other lady was on the Windows team at a home improvements company I was working for, and they were used to me because I've been doing odd things like this in that company for years and years and years. So they're used to me, and they know if somebody gets a migraine, they come over and say, Dennis, can you do 5 minutes? And I sort the migraine out for them on my tea break or whatever. Or I get to get a break. I get 5 minutes extra because I'm helping somebody else sort a migraine out. So it was in my interest to do it because I was getting a break from being on the phone myself.
I used to have. Go ahead.
I was just saying and I did it because it was fun.
I used to have serious migraines, and now sometimes I'll get the color patterns of migraines without the pain, but I tracked down what it was, and it was unbleached or bleached flour. Bleached
Right.
white flour was what was giving me the migraines. And when I stopped eating white bread and baguettes and overdoing the breads, that's what led to the migraines dissipating.
Right. That makes sense. There's obviously your reaction to something.
Yeah, it's one of those things where people are extremely sensitive detectors. And if something isn't right in your world, your body will tell you that it's not right. So getting to a ground state and figuring out why your whatever is keeping you from that ground state is in process of what it's doing helps me at least to allow it to dissipate and waver. I don't think I do reishi, but when it was explained to me back when we had the radio show, it seemed like an extremely similar process. And once we determined that reishi could be sent over distance and you didn't need to be hands on, that seemed to make it all click. And I could use the technique to just keep myself in order.
Yeah, and you can send it to yourself in the future. If you think you've got something happening, if you think you've got a cold coming on, obviously send to yourself in the present, but also send to the next day as well. And then whatever's happening continues for the next day. So
Yeah. This is not medical advice for anybody. We're just talking about how we heal ourselves. But everybody has the capacity to heal themselves. And by taking responsibility for your own health in the first person, you tend to be healthier in general.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at something like the immunix techniques that I've been using, where the one of the examples they give, which is a really really good way to explain things, is to take out viruses, which means basically the guy who invented it took out herpes virus. He was having herpes outbreaks for 20 odd years. But you can do it with flu viruses and cold viruses and stomach bugs that are viruses or whatever. To me, I don't think that viruses exist. But in this model, if you believe that viruses exist and they're causing you problem, then you just take it out. It's like taking out the belief in the virus. That's effectively what you're doing, because at the end of it, at the end of a long process of taking out viruses, you'll realize that viruses don't exist, basically, and it's all made up.
Yeah, a lot of what they call viruses are just products of metabolic degradation that once you've got cells and they've served their purpose, the body takes them apart and releases their components back to you so that other similar cells can pick up those components. And how the intention of the body works to get the proper components to the proper places, that I think is the role of water and consciousness, that the water will talk to a cell, find out that this cell might need, oh, say, potassium. And so it goes out, finds a potassium, migrates it, and gets it in where it's needed.
Right, that makes sense. That does make sense, because the water's the commonality between all of the cells and all of the functions of the body, isn't it, essentially?
Yeah, it's the carrier. And so if it has intention and can split into ways that split into mechanistic paths, as long as there's a mechanistic path, the body can do it. And I'm even starting to question that. I think the body can do some things without a mechanism that once you once you understand what it is you want to accomplish, focus will accomplish that. Hey, Anthony, good to see you.
Right? Yeah, it's an interesting combination of things. The human body and the human mind together make up a. Even though they can both go awry, and they do go awry sometimes, if you've got them working together properly, that's a huge amount of uh, range of possibilities if everything's working in sync. Because if you get your body and your mind working in sync and it's in sync with the environment, that's even better. That's even better. Even if you just get two out of the three working in sync, that's really what we're aiming for.
A lot of time the mind likes to run. And it's very important to have individual mind control of your own mind and catch yourself when you're imagining things that don't have to be, because you can take yourself into a mindset where you harm your body if you believe in things that are harmful are happening. It's one of those things about chemtrails where once I mentally diminished the impact of chemtrails, they no longer bother me. But I really do wish they would stop spraying the damn things. And I do not at all believe that the phenomena of climate is affected by the bulk of mankind, just the idiots who are going out and trying to deal with it. And I use idiots lovingly because they're smart people. It's just their over focus on something that isn't technically correct brings it about for others. And, it would be nice to develop a second system comparable to the university system that works different, that can build a knowledge base that isn't guided by the previous built knowledge bases that the system builds itself on. There have been a lot of very intelligent people who are just plain technically wrong, but their materials got taught and inserted into the base conversation so that the ground state was raised and that we can't get our energy plateau back down to a flattened thing. I've been thinking about vibration and frequency, and frequency doesn't change with the amplitude of the vibration. And that's That's bothersome in a number of different physics ways, especially in the concept of time. Time is limited by human thought, and really, I believe we are in the moment at any moment we are in, and that projecting that moment into a time base and giving it a time and a certainty takes the moment and isolates it from the flow of moments that it could potentially have.
Right, yeah. Say that again, Lenny, because I missed some. My head wasn't quite with it there.
I think that our concept of the relationship of frequency and amplitude isn't quite right, that frequency, vibration are obviously related to each other, but the amplitude of the signal you get at that frequency is not a constant and is not dependent on what the amplitude is. And so a lot of what we comprehend through our sciences with the physics of E equals HC or E equals H nu, which equals HC over lambda, is the relationship where lambda is the wavelength and H is the H is the Planck constant. Nu is the frequency. And so the relationship between frequency and wavelength is cemented in the physics by
Yeah,
definition, but it isn't in reality that way. And physicists are great for inventing constants like the Planck constant H that correlate things that don't otherwise correlate. And so I think that perhaps our big adjustment coming in the near future is our loss of the scientific integrity because of our understanding that physics as we have been taught it isn't correct. It's We've got definitions that are circular, and so we can't get past them. Frequency depends on wavelength, wavelength depends on frequency. That is defined. Defined doesn't mean it's true.
No, it's just a way of making a model out of it, isn't it? It's a way of making it so that you can talk about it.
Yeah, and I think that we've also limited ourselves greatly by talking about three-dimensional space, and that there is a lot more spatially going on than just length, width, and height. But by breaking it into that, we've essentially put ourselves in a container. And to get out of that container, we're going to have to make some base changes in the assumptions that went into building the container. It's like the physics of reishi. They say it has to be hands on, but we've demonstrated that it works over distance and it works over any distance. So the reishi signal is like
At least one of
it's
the
like
there we go.
something that rides the frequency. It's not the frequency itself.
Right, okay. I lost some of that, Lenny, but I'm sure it's on the recording, so I'll listen when we get finished. We're coming up to an hour now, so we're 51 minutes, so we've got a few minutes left. But is there anything else you want to add to that while we're in the mood for frequency and Planck's constant and all of that?
Well, one of the things I could add to that is what they've done with music by changing the base frequency of music from 432 to 440. It means that all the music that we hear is just slightly off kilter with the resonance phase of our bodies. And it might not be a bad thing at all, but the recognition that getting into music can actually take you out of kilter is something that I found very, very odd, because in general we think that everything is an improvement, and it really isn't. That there's a common ground and a center, and moving away from that center changes the frequency enough that the metabolism, which is based on the frequency, starts altering. So you can have music that actually harms your ears, and people attribute it to the loud volume, but I also think it's that it's not at a resonant frequency with people.
Yeah, I mean, I've always listened to rock music, hard rock and metal mostly. But I like my blues and I like my jazz as well. But I'm finding the older I get, the more I'm drawn to classical music and orchestral music and chamber quartets and things like that. I still don't know anything about them technically, but I'm much more attracted to that type of music now than I was 20 odd years ago or whatever when I was in my 30s.
Yeah, my musical tastes have changed, and now I do not like having a musical background to when I'm talking or trying to listen to a speaker. And it's one of those things that if there's music playing in the background, my brain tries to follow the music and
Yeah.
delinks itself from the listening process.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't do that really very much either at the moment. But I haven't got my radio stopped working, and I can't get on the internet on my laptop. So that might be part of the reason for it. But I'm very much in silence a lot of the time now. Whereas before I would have had Radio 4 or Radio 5 on in the background, or I would have had Six Music on in the background or something like that. So silence has got its advantages.
Yeah, and a lot of people do not like the silence. They always have to have something, whether it's leaving the telly on in the background or having a radio playing, just so that the noise becomes a source of comfort.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why. Can absolutely understand why, but at the same time, it's a way of avoiding yourself, isn't it? It's a way of avoiding your thoughts, because you're implanting a different kind of thought in your head, so there's nothing can arise from inside of you, for want of a better way of describing it. I mean, it's probably not inside of you. It's probably we're on an antenna that's picking up thoughts from somewhere completely different.
Yeah, I wonder if there are differentiations between people that allow certain people to pick up each other's thoughts easier, that maybe there is the capacity of brains to work in link or in tandem with each other, and that one of the things that keeps us from doing that is the overflow of media that is in constant bombardment, keeping our attention instead of allowing us to step back and meditate on what it is that we're doing. Silence is not stillness, but developing a sense where you can move to stillness is a way of thought control. So I definitely think we can get into talking about mind control in the next session and ways that we can keep our mind control internal instead of slipping into the hooks of media and giving them external mind control over our individual status.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of potential ways where mass media get inside of you without you even realizing it. Even just on like billboards on this in Newcastle, we've got flashing kind of LCD billboards on two or three of the main roads, and it's like you'll see a poster and it changes every 5 or 6 seconds. So there's a rotational thing for a couple of minutes where you'll get eight or nine different adverts, and just 6 seconds is enough. If it wasn't enough, they wouldn't be selling it on the basis of 6 seconds, would they?
Nope. And yeah, I remember looking into subliminal advertising, and especially in magazine ads, if you start looking at the pictures in the magazine ads, you can see where they've changed things to put subtle figures into the undercurrent. And our brain will pick that up subconsciously, but unless you're looking for it, you don't see it consciously.
Yeah, this they made it illegal in the cinema, didn't they? They made it illegal to quick cut subliminal images because people were doing it in the 50s and 60s in
Yeah, the
advertising.
movie theaters were selling popcorn by making it so that subliminally they're telling their watchers, go buy popcorn.
Yeah, flash up a two frame picture of a hot dog or whatever. It's one of those things where unless you can't stop it completely, but you can stop quite a lot of it just by switching things off. But then you don't necessarily want everything switched off all the time. You need to be connected to the world a little bit here and there just to see what's going on. Well, I do anyway. I can't speak for anybody else, but I do.
Yeah, I wonder. I find I am connected to the world no matter how much I try to not be. All right,
Yeah, I
my
find I'm
friend, it
not.
was good to chat with you again.
All right, yeah, we're coming up to an hour, aren't we? So we'll wrap that up now, and I'll see you again next week. Have a good week, Lenny.
Sounds good. Take care, Dennis.
All right, be well, man.